One of the biggest tenets of red pill logic is that women adapt to the environment that men put them in. And so if you wonder why women are the way they are today, it's because that's the environment that men have created for women. I forgot who I was watching. I was watching some red pill. I don't remember if it was Tribes of Men or Rolo or somebody else. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember seeing this clip that somebody had posted. And it was a very attractive, tall woman. She was a young woman. She must have looked like she was in her mid-20s. And she said there's no incentive for attractive women like me to behave, to maintain their chastity is basically what she was talking about. Because you see all the other women and they're getting attention and they're getting, trips and they're getting this and they're getting that. They're getting money on things like Instagram, or they're getting money off of OnlyFans, etc. And it's a very similar problem to why many people complain about the fentanyl issue in America. And they complain to the government that the government should do something. And it's like, well, it's just supply and demand. If there was no demand, then there would be no supply. And so the reason that there is a supply of fentanyl is because there's a demand. It's the demand from the people. And so the same way, why are women sluts and whores today? Why do they dress provocatively? And every Instagram is some chick showing off her ass or something to that nature. It's because there is a supply, because there is a demand, and it's what the men want. Red pillars will say women adapt to the environment that you put them in, while also stating that if you're not sleeping with a woman on date 1, 2, or 3, then somebody else is dicking her down. So don't be a simp, right? This is what they'll state to you. So you have a lot of these men that are being taught, and you see this with a lot of Fresh and Fit. Most red pillars talk about this. They state that, well, this is just female nature. And I say, no, this is not female nature. This is the environment that men have put them in. Because look at other cultures. Look at the Muslim culture. Why do the women behave in that culture versus misbehave in this culture? And it's just simply because the men don't allow it. The culture is not there for the women to adapt to. So the women adapt to the culture. They adapt to the environment that the men put them in. And so this is the reason also why you see women virtue signal for LGBTQ, gay men, etc. It's overwhelmingly because women derive their morality from men. Because morality is a system of beliefs that is held by a person or a people or a group, and it is enforced. Who is it enforced by? It's enforced by the men. How is it that Muslim women will, they'll wear the hijab, they will maintain their chastity, they won't go out and wear tight-fitting clothing? It's because the men enforce certain behaviors within their women. And American men, just like that woman said, I wish I could remember where I saw that clip. It's for the same reason. Why are so many women on things like Seeking Arrangements or Instagram and showing their bodies off, or on OnlyFans? Why is OnlyFans so popular? People talk about these women just making ridiculous amounts of money, garnishing millions and millions of followers, and getting all this attention. It's because there is a demand. And this is the environment that men have placed women in. Now, yes, it was incentivized at some point via feminism. And feminism did nothing but free men. It freed men from the responsibility of having to care for women. If you wanted sex, if you wanted a family, well, then you had to go out and work for it, and you had to provide for a woman. And you had to be the leader. You had to be the head of the household. Men nowadays don't want to do that. And it shows by the environment. The environment isn't changing. There's still a demand for pornography, OnlyFans, all that sort of content where women show off their bodies. And so women naturally adapt, because men aren't going to be out here praising the virgins, because they want sex, and they want easy sex, and they want easy sex without any responsibilities. This is why you have the welfare state, and the, what's it called? Child support, because men were abandoning children. Men were abandoning children. They didn't want the responsibility. And so they abdicated that authority to the state. And so the state couldn't, which was what society, the people cried out. And they said, you people who are in a position of leadership, or we will find someone who will take responsibility. And so men don't mind the taxation because it's better than the responsibility of raising children. Overwhelmingly, the responsibility lies with men. And so why is it that both society and women, whenever things go wrong, they blame it on men? And men say, men refuse to take responsibility. And they'll say, no, it's the woman's fault, just like Adam. When Adam followed Eve into sin, he blamed it on God, and he said, it was the woman you gave me. And the woman turned around and said, it was the serpent. The serpent made me eat. And so people's tendency, especially nowadays, towards responsibility is skewed. People don't want responsibility. I see this in the healthcare industry, where people will eat whatever they want to eat, and then they come into the hospital scratching their head, why am I so unhealthy? And it's like, well, maybe you need to change your diet and exercise. And it was like, body shaming, body positivity, I can be healthy at any weight. And it's just people's desire not to be responsible for themselves. And people wonder why, you have people like Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum that could say things like, you will own nothing and you'll be happy. It's because this is what the people want, overwhelmingly. Despite, people might want the benefits of owning a home, but they don't want the responsibility of owning a home. They want to abdicate that responsibility to the government. They want to build homes, literally on the very edge of the sea, and then wonder what happens when the sea swallows up their home, and then cry to the government, you need to do something. And it's the same thing. There was like that mother, that black woman who had like 12 kids by like, I don't know how many different daddies. And she was like, somebody needs to take responsibility for all this. And it's like, bitch, you're the one that had all them kids. The men aren't taking responsibility. So who does she virtue signal to? She virtue signals to the government. When she says somebody needs to take responsibility for all these children, she's talking to the government. She's talking to the government. She's talking to the men that run the government. And people wonder why we have a socialist state. It's because people overwhelmingly don't want to be responsible. And it's overwhelmingly the men. The men in the city don't want to be responsible for the women. And so it's fantastic. Hey, I can go out here. I can get sex. I don't have to worry about taking care of this chick. I don't have to worry about providing for her. I don't have to provide a roof. I don't have to provide for the kids. The state will take care of all that. And that's why you look in the black community, and that's why you see such a high rate of single motherhood. Why? Because the men don't want to take responsibility for the women. That's why the women are so indignant towards their men, because women at an innate level do understand that the men are responsible for them. That's why the women in the black community cry out that we are the most unprotected. Who are they unprotected from? From themselves. Because the men don't want to take responsibility for them. And unfortunately, to do that, you have to do that by a measure of force. And then you have this other group, i.e. the government, that has realized we have all this authority and they don't want to give it up. And the same thing happened in Jesus' day, when Jesus was stirring up the pot in Israel, and the religious leaders in his day, who were basically the politicians, were afraid of the Romans coming and taking their authority. They didn't care about the people. They didn't care about the benefit of the people. What they cared about is their authority. And Jesus said that is the tendency of those who are put in positions of power, that they lord it over those whom they have authority over. And of course, he said that shouldn't be the way among you who choose to serve and follow me. And so for America to change, the men have to change. The men in America can't expect women to sleep with them on the first, second, and third date and have the mindset and say, well, if she's not sleeping with me, then she must be sleeping with someone else, and then push women to sleep with them. And that's really all that women have to offer men is sex. And women know this. That's why they behave the way they behave. They dress provocatively to get the attention of men. They go out there and get breast implants, they get lip fillers, they get butt implants, they do everything for the glory and attention of men. And if men don't change their morality, If men don't uphold a system of beliefs, then neither will the women. If the men are not willing to be held accountable and be held responsible, then neither will the women. And when the men choose to take responsibility for the going on of their nation, that's when they'll be willing to put up a fight against the government, because they will no longer be willing to abdicate their authority to a group of men and women as puppets, for the mob. And this is what you see nowadays. You see everyone not wanting to be responsible, even to the point where you're now seeing men who are advocating to cut off their penises so that they can be women, so that they can be part of a protected group. That's how far away men have gone in society in terms of the desire and the willingness to be responsible. They've gone so far astray from being the pillars of society to literally wanting to be women who have no responsibility in society. Men overwhelmingly are responsible for maintaining the upkeep and the creation of society. And you have many men, especially in the LGBTQ, who are pushing for this stuff. Why? It's just virtue signaling to the government that we are giving all of our authority to you. We are no threat to you, right? If you're a man willing to cut his penis off, you are signaling that you are a threat to nobody. And the people that they're virtue signaling to are the government. Castration is typically, this is what you see this in like a lot of animals, where animals, other males will attack other male animals. I'm not sure if you see, I forget if you see this like in the lions, where they will attack the man's penis. They'll basically make the animals eunuchs forcefully. And this was done in times past where they needed soldiers, but then they were worried about the soldiers who were overlooking the women. And then they were worried about, when they had harems, and they were worried about these men sleeping with them and creating illegitimate children that were not part of the aristocracies or the ruling class. And so what did they do? They turned them into eunuchs. They cut off their balls so that they weren't able to procreate. And it basically neutered them from a male perspective. They were no threat. You're no threat to me. And the woman wouldn't desire them. And this is what you see men doing willingly among the generations of Gen Z, where you have young men that are willingly making themselves eunuchs, showing to the government, I am no threat to you. Whatever sort of bravado that there should be within a man who has testosterone flowing through his veins, they hate it with every bit of their energy, of their force, of their vital force, because they don't want the government to look at them as a threat. If anything, they want the government to be their weapon of choice, so that when push comes to shove, they can point to an individual and say, you, and point to the government and say, that's him, get him. This is what many men want. They want to behave very similarly to women. And overwhelmingly, this is because of men not wanting to take responsibility for society. And it will only go away when the hard times come. When the hard times come and the penalty for weakness is death, then you won't see people virtue signaling anymore about how weak they are. Now you see people, well, I'm gay. I'm a white gay man. Oh, you're a white gay man? You're still part of the patriarchy. You still got privilege. You're white. You're a man. Oh, well, really, I'm trans. I'm non-binary. I identify as a woman. I changed my gender is fluid, like the sea. And it's just because overwhelmingly people don't want to be responsible. And any sort of threat, they want to minimize that. I'm no threat to the government. I'm no threat to the government at all. Because in essence, they've made them the alphas. And so this is why I said before, this is why you see women who promote this stuff. Because women derive their morality from the strongest men in their life, or the strongest masculine energy in their life. And so this is why they adapt. This is why they adapt to the men that come into their life. If you're a conservative Muslim, then guess what? Your woman's going to want to be a Muslim too. If you're a conservative Christian, then guess what? Your woman's going to want to be a Christian as well. If you're a biker, well, then guess what? The women are going to adapt to your lifestyle, because women adapt to the environment of the men put them in. And this isn't going to change until the men change. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.